Hi, Robert. Thank you so much for being here with us for our 22nd Happiness Happens month. This is the second time you're celebrating with us. So thank you. The first one happened after your first book was released. And I think you have a second book coming out, right?
Yes, Love from the Inside Out. And thank you so much for having me. It's always such a pleasure and privilege to connect.
Now it isn't. Love also is one of our 31 types of happiness. So thank you. So our theme for this month is helping people expand their definition of happiness. And the Society of Happy People has identified 31 types of happiness that we've had out for over 2 decades now. And so we want to talk and share stories about each of the 31 types of happiness this month. And you've been so kind and gracious to talk to us today about peace and being peaceful. So peaceful is one of the 30 types of happiness. And I was hearing other interviews where you were talking about peace. And I just wondered if you had a story to share with us about being peaceful.
Absolutely. So it starts off a little bit morbid, but it ends well. So when I was a kid, I was extraordinarily unhappy and deeply depressed. And I always thought I'd grow out of it. I always thought I'd do well in school and that I'd do well in sports and I'd get some friends and maybe even make some money. I wanted to be a professional basketball player. I hoped that that would work out. So as I got older, I thought I'd grow out of it. That did not happen right away. Instead, I became more and more depressed, and I got to a place where I was seriously suicidal. And I started doing some research around like ways, and means, and methods to kill myself. I decided I was going to slash my wrist. I went to the kitchen, got a kitchen knife, dug the knife in, and the most unexpected, unpredictable thing happened ever, which is that without anything in my external life changing at all. So I had a great life, honestly. I had good health and I had health, fantastic family, and I was doing well in life. I was just so unhappy for it all. Despite any of those things not changing, I felt a level of peace that I hadn't ever experienced before. And I couldn't understand that. It was unfathomable. It was inexplicable. And so at that time, I decided to postpone the suicide for the time was only 15 minutes, which sounds kind of laughable at this time because it sounds like such a short period of time. But in that period of time, I started doing some research on like what happiness is and what unhappiness is. And so that 15 minutes sort of bled into several hours, which I look back now has been several decades. And what I discovered about peace and happiness in that moment, and it's taken me quite a long time to really understand it, is that the peace that I experienced at that point in time was a peace that passed understanding. For the first time in my life, my mind was truly still and silent. It was cool, quiet, composed, and collected. I wasn't thinking about any of my problems. I wasn't thinking about any of my desires. I wasn't thinking about any of my fears. I wasn't thinking of anybody or anything at all in the world. And in that silence, in that stillness, was this peaceful aliveness that I often also call happiness.
And so was there something that you think really was was it like a divine intervention that had you have that feeling then, you think, or was it?
I would call it a divine intervention. And I think of the divine as no mind, meaning that when I'm not lost, consumed, and absorbed in my own stressful thinking, I am aware of the mind, but I'm transcending the mind. And in that place of no mind is the divine. That's where that still small voice speaks to you in a way. In this particular moment, it spoke to me just as a feeling of deep peace, of an alive peace. And so, yes, I call it divine intervention. You don't have to call it that. You can just call it peace. But yeah, without question, it felt miraculous to me. And it was something that I couldn't have plotted or planned or scripted on my own with my own human mind.
No, well, exactly. I'm an angel girl, so I feel like you had a tap on the shoulder from an angel, but that's not everybody's thing. So I was just curious what you saw it as. So moving forward, so now what do you do to keep in that peaceful state? Is there something specific?
Yeah, I've returned to that sort of that stateless state or that placeless place where I'm not thinking, I'm not trying to figure things out. I'm not trying to get rid of anything or fix anything. I'm just enjoying the peaceful aliveness or the life force that I feel in my body at all times. So right now, in your hands, your feet, your stomach, throughout your whole body, you can feel there's an energy in there. There's a vibration, something pulsating in there. And it's just so subtle in the very beginning. even if you feel into your hands, that life energy, that force, I sort of imagine or call God, okay? Or like I can call it like infinite intelligence, you call it anything you want, but it is peaceful aliveness. And I feel into that as often as humanly possible throughout the day, no matter what else I'm doing, simply for joy's sake alone. And when I do that, sometimes I might call it a micro meditation. I might call it practicing the presence of God or of the divine. But strangely enough and miraculously enough, everything in my life seems to go better almost instantly as a result of just simply practicing the presence. So for me, that's what I do. Before I did that, I used to just do pure micro meditation, which was just taking one breath from the stomach through the nose and out through the mouth, as though that one breath was the last breath I'd ever get again on this planet. And so I try to milk it for as much joy as I could possibly get. And you can do that best if you're not thinking, you're mostly just feeling. So yeah, micro meditation in the beginning, now it's practice in the presence.
I love that. And joy is also one of our 31 types of happiness, feeling joyful. So you're hitting on 3 today.
Yes.
So okay, thank you for sharing our story on being peaceful, and that I love that, because so many people, I think, feel when they hit bottom that they will not find that state of feeling peaceful and even content, which is a type of happiness, and joyful. And it sounds like you did that. So thank you for sharing that. So let me ask you, one of the principles of practical happiness, my new book, is happiness is personal.
Yes.
So what is one of your happiness is personal? It's not part of kind of what I can consider either groupthink or competitive happiness. It might not be for your significant other or your siblings or your friends even. It's just that one thing that for you at this point in your life, when you look at it, you go, yeah, this is something that, will make me happy 9.5 times out of 10.
Absolutely. I love that so much. I mean, there's so many things I have. In early in my life, the one thing I recognized right away was sports. And usually it was running for me, or even weightlifting, something that got me in my body and out of my head. That's the one thing I discovered. And then over time, I've picked up a few more. Reading. I mean, especially if the book is about happiness or about peace or about resting, relaxing, especially resting, relaxing your mind. I love that. I mean, I'd say 10 out of 10 times, I just feel so much peace and so much joy when I'm reading one of my books, and not one I've written, just a book in general about peace or happiness. Those are the 2 greatest, I say, practices. I also just love spending time in nature, particularly at the beach, out in the sunshine or at the pool. That for me is bliss, without question. I would say those are my top 3, without question.
They're your go-tos. I love that, because they're also diverse.
Yes.
So you're kind of going to them depending on what you need in that moment. Sometimes you're wanting that exercise, that physical piece. Sometimes you're exercising, your mind, and then sometimes it sounds like you're restoring your soul.
Absolutely, it's mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah. So I love that those are your top 3. So you sort of addressed this, but because I still like this question. The second principle of the book is happiness zappers are manageable. You kind of call them
Happiness valleys.
The valleys. Yes.
Yes.
I'm like I'm drawing it with my hands. I'm like, where's the word? So you call them valleys. So these windows, because I think one of the biggest misconceptions that people have is that if you aspire to be happy, if you're happy most of the time, however you want to tagline it, that you also just never have any unhappiness. Like you're just never unhappy. And that's just not realistic. I think of happy valleys or happiness zappers that they're manageable. And as long as we look at them from the viewpoint of we can manage them, from the worst being the death of someone we love or a pet or which is the worst kind of loss and unhappiness, to something as annoying as your barista didn't make you feel all warm and fuzzy today because maybe they're having a bad day.
Yes.
But that whole continuum, like we have the 31 types of happiness, and they're not all equal energetically, but they can help you get where you want to go. Because sometimes happiness is literally feeling just a little bit better than you felt the moment before.
That's right.
Whatever that is for you.
Yeah.
We do the same with the happiness zappers or the happiness valley. So what would be, as a final question, what would be a tip for our audience today if they find themselves, in one of those valleys, if they're not feeling so happy? Like I said, you did sort of describe one, but do you have another one you'd like to share?
Yeah, of course. So I'd say it's probably a 3-step or 3-part process. So first is just identify the people, places, things, and activities that drain you, that no matter how much time, energy, and effort you put in, you just don't enjoy, you feel worse for having done, you feel drained for having spent time with. Second, reverse engineer those things out of your life as much as possible. And there are 6 ways to reverse engineer them out of your life. Outsource, that means pay someone else to do it. Delegate, give someone else that task or activity. Reduce, meaning just do less of it or see them less often. Eliminate, automate, or regulate. So those 6 options. So the question is, how can I get this thing, person, place, or activity as much out of my life as humanly possible so I can focus on my happiness islands, the things that naturally energize me, inspire me, and make me feel good or happy to be alive. And then the third piece is, sometimes you can't avoid certain people, places, or things or activities. You still have to do your taxes, or you still have to spend time with that uncle or that brother or sister that is a little more challenging. And in those moments, that's when it's good to go back to the practice we mentioned earlier, which is like a micro meditation or practicing the presence. So when you're doing this thing you don't want to do, or spending time with this person you don't want to spend time with, can you rest and relax inside and spend time retreating in that place of perfect peace where there are no problems and there is nothing wrong, right? Even as you have the conversation. So I'd say that for me has been, I suppose, my 3-part process for dealing with happiness zappers or happiness valleys.
I love that. In part because we talk about with happiness zappers, we talk about creating what we call a zap map, which is a zapper management action plan. And you just laid out a perfect one for any of your happiness zappers. And the situation is always fluid with them. So something that might annoy you at a 10 today might in a week only annoy you at a 2 or 3. And so what you need to do to manage it could be a little bit different.
Absolutely. So well said, Pamela. Definitely.
So again, thank you for celebrating Happiness Happens Month with us. And I am so excited to stay in touch, and I can't wait to read your new book.
I'm so grateful and honored that you would have me. I truly, genuinely love and appreciate you so much. And thank you, not just for what you do, Pamela, but for who you are. So yeah, it's such an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.